The following is a live broadcast of a Lone Star community radio program, recorded and broadcasted live on irlonestar.com, Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1, and facebook.com/irlonestar. For more information on this show, please visit our show page at irlonestar.com/shows. To sponsor or donate to this program, visit our donate page at irlonestar.com/donate, or email us at lscrstudios@gmail.com, or give us a call at 936-666-1084. Lone Star Community Radio production and broadcast is possible by folks like you. So sponsor and donate today.
Hey, this is DJ Mike from Dance Time in Texas, and you're listening to Lone Star Community Radio on 104.5 KZZW LP Conroe and 106.1 KZCC LP Conroe, and worldwide on irlonestar.com.
Welcome back. This is the Extension Hour, Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service. So we are doing a 4-H series of shows. So this one's kind of a little bit different than what we normally do in the Extension Hour. It's kind of similar, but because we usually just talk, we have really good conversations. We highlight our people, our programs, and our partnerships. But one of our programs that are kind of the cornerstone of what we do in Extension is our 4-H program, so helping our youth. And we are doing a series of three shows. So in the first one, we talked a little bit, just an orientation of how to join 4-H, what is getting on 4-H online, how to find a club, how to start thinking about a project. So in this show, we wanted to go just a little bit more in depth about some of those project opportunities. So you've got a project, and then how do you really showcase what you've learned from that project? What are the opportunities to really kind of test your knowledge and your skills and sort of even show off a little bit, because 4-H is really, we said before, making the best better. That's the motto of 4-H. So that's the way you make the best better, is you test and you retest and you contest and you you show off what you've learned. So that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we get too far into that, you go ahead and introduce yourself, just in case someone's tuning in for the first time, and who our people are in the studio today.
I am Michelle Mahalik, and I'm the County Extension Agent for the 4-H program here.
My name is Justin Sines. I'm the Urban Youth Development Agent for Montgomery County.
So Urban Youth does a little bit more non-traditional type things, where 4-H does kind of the traditional 4-H, but both of you guys work in the 4-H program. And actually, in Extension, every Extension agent has 4-H responsibilities. We do a little bit of 4-H. So whereas my main responsibilities is within family and community health and mostly adult programs, I also do a lot of 4-H projects as well, or 4-H involvement. So with some of the contests, I help run those, I provide advice when anybody asks, if you want to know, I can usually help just a little bit. Anyway, so so we at Texas A&M AgriLife Extension. So one of the things that makes 4-H a little different than maybe some other programs, youth programs that are out there, is that it is part of Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service, whereas every state in Texas every county in Texas has an extension office, has a 4-H program, and every state in the nation has a extension service and has a 4-H program. And it's always interesting, too, to see the differences on 4-H programs.
32 countries in the world have something similar to 4-H.
Yeah. So what makes it a little different? So it's not, so sometimes people can kind of confuse us with FFA, or they think that FFA is 4-H, and they are very similar, and we are great partners with them. We enjoy working with the agriculture programs in schools, but we're not like a class in school. So people that are involved in 4-H really kind of have to make an additional effort to be involved in 4-H, right? So they can't, it's just not part of their school day. They have to go to additional meetings. They do project activities. We talked a little bit about the meetings and all the great things that they learn just from participating in a meeting, even though it sounds like really boring, just a meeting. They're learning all the cool stuff that they need to know, but it's just kind of snuck in on them, right? All right, so projects. We talked a little bit in the previous show about some of the projects, but let's just kind of reiterate what types of projects there are available in 4-H.
Well, and kind of, I'd like to talk a little bit about project selection and how that process works. There's 44 projects that are supported by some kind of curriculum. We could hand you a guide or a book, and if you didn't have a project leader in your club, you could kind of get the basics from that. So those are the ones that are listed. A part of trying to decide what project to do, that's a family decision. That's a family discussion. Yes, what are the youth in your family, what are your children interested in? But there is a financial factor that comes in that. There's a situational factor that comes into that. So we talked in our last show about 4-H is $25 before October 31st. It's $30 enrollment fee after October 31st. And that's for you to be a 4-H member for the whole year until next August 31st. But in addition to that cost, whatever projects you're interested in, there'll be the additional cost of that project. So if you live in a subdivision with a normal sized backyard and your child is dying to do a steer project, that's probably not something situational within your family that's going to be an option. So we can look at things like livestock judging that would get that same, educational component of a livestock project without actually having to own or be able to own the livestock project itself. Justin has got an active robotics project, but while we do have robotic kits that can be checked out for a team to utilize, it may be difficult to get to the office and check that out and use it for your practice and then turn around and turn it back in. So that may be something where you want to have your own kit, robotics kit, to be able to practice with. It does require a laptop to do that. So is that something that you have the funds to invest in as a family, in a $350 kit plus whatever the laptop if you don't already have one? So just because your child is really fired up or a 4-H member is really fired up to do this really awesome project, there are limiting factors, whether they're situational, whether they're financial. Those are all things that need to be taken consideration into as you're selecting your project.
And that also relates into like how many projects that you might do, right? So you can do as many projects as you want to do, as long as your situation and finances and all of that work for that, right?
Correct. And those projects may be a group project. You may be doing it with your club and going to club meetings. You may also be doing some of your projects as self-directed. So you're doing the education, you're learning by looking on the internet or reading the curriculum and doing the exercises at home as a group and doing it self-directed.
So one thing that constitutes a project is that we like to encourage that projects have 6 learning experiences. So you're going to learn 6 things from that project throughout the year. And those are going to be small things. Let's talk about the food and nutrition project. So learning how to read a label might be something that would be one of those lessons. If it's the beef project, maybe learning how to feed a beef heifer, how to properly feed a beef heifer. If it's the robotics project, how to program your robotic to make a right turn. So those are little lessons that we want kids to get throughout the year, along with setting a goal. We encourage kids to set that goal and try to meet it. The goal may be, I want to compete in my first contest, is a popular goal. Some of it may be, I just want to eat better. I want to learn how to eat right. Another goal may be for the beef project is I want to be able to produce a calf until, market readiness. Along with that, we always encourage community service projects with all our projects. They're not required, but we do encourage it.
Mm-hmm. And so we mentioned 4-H age is 3rd grade through 12th grade. So that's a good 9 years worth of opportunities to be involved in 4-H. And so you talked about the 6 learning activities or 6 learning things. So that the projects can be progressive, right? So you set goals to learn something more in depth each year that you're participating in 4-H. And we mentioned in the previous show too about the career exploration opportunities that are part of 4-H. And so just increasing that knowledge and the things that you're learning in your project can lead you closer to deciding, is this a career for me, or is this more of a hobby that I might want to do as I grow up? Of course, food and nutrition, right? You're going to always have to eat. So it's not really a hobby. It's an important life lesson.
Right. And the other thing along with that is, we know that kids are not going to be experts, on day one. And so over time, over the years in 4-H, they're going to become experts in their field. We also encourage our kids to be teen leaders and to help train our younger kids and to remember what it was like when they first joined the project and not knowing how to do the food and nutrition project. But also we would like them to give back. What have they learned? What were some of their failures? What were some of their successes? And how can we help the younger youth in the program?
And we mentioned finances, right? So there's the enrollment fee. Then also there's any type of project fees that might be involved. And then if you participate in a contest, there's also maybe a contest registration fee. So we're going to talk a little bit more about what those contests are, what some of those fees are, just to give people kind of an idea of what to expect. And we'll be just a little bit more in depth about some of the opportunities that are out there, like I said, to kind of show off everything that you've learned in your 4-H project. But before that, we're going to do we're going to take a break, and we'll be back in just a few minutes here on the Extension Hour on Lone Star Radio, where we talk about our people, our programs, and our partnerships. And we talk about 4-H. Woo! We'll be right back.
A Lone Star Community Radio is looking for those who are interested in hosting their own talk show, with monthly and weekly slots available on Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1, and on irlonestar.com. Start your own podcast, create your first YouTube channel, and be on TV. Contact Lone Star Community Radio online at irlonestar.com or call the station message line at 936-647-3776 to take your first step into the radio world.
We have the safest food supply in the world. Strict laws and regulations restrict the usage of hormones, antibiotics, and pesticides within our food supply. Production agriculture practices and technologies such as the use of GMOs, which is not any more or less risky than conventional crop production, has allowed American farmers to produce more food on less acres in environmentally sound ways. Find out more online at pathtotheplate.tamu.edu. We are Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, helping Texans make lives better.
Listen in Mondays at noon to hear Conroe news from local nonprofits, businesses, upcoming events, Conroe Park events, news stories, and information that matters to you with your host, Margie Taylor of Taylorized PR. For more information about being a guest, visit irlonestar.com/Conroe Culture.
Welcome back to the Extension Hour. I'm Amy Rustler. I've got Michelle Mahalik and Justin Sines here, and we are all employees of Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service. We're county extension agents. We help Texans make their lives better through the educational programs that we do, and obviously one of those is the 4-H program that we've been talking about. So this is part of a 3-part series of 4-H basics, basically, is what we're talking about. In the first show, we talked about how to join 4-H, and now we're talking more about projects and kind of where you can show off or how you can show off those projects and sort of share with others what you've learned. So, we're talking contests, and that's part of it, but also part of it, too, is teaching others. So all of the life skills that kids are learning through 4-H projects, they are sharing with others, and sometimes it's a motivator for people, right? If you get a chance to be in a contest, I mean, there's a lot of contests that are part of life too. So being a good competitor, a good sportsman, yeah, not necessarily being a good loser. So yeah, I'm thinking of a coworker, like You guys know him, but he used to say, "There's no good losers," which is, we do learn how to lose gracefully and how to improve and set goals and do things better in the future and the next time around, because you can't all be perfect, right?
And don't be afraid of failure.
Exactly, and that was one of the tips that we had in the first show that we, when we were talking about 4-H. Okay, so we've been talking about projects, right? So you're trying to figure out the project that you want. There is some financial investment involved. I think minimal. And then sometimes when there are contests, there will be some registration fees that just kind of help make those contests run. So some of the things that happen, if 4-H contests, we call it 4-H Roundup. And so this is funny too, right? So you guys both grew up in 4-H, and you, it's like one of those things that we talk about in Extension now that we think that everybody just knows what it means. So I remember when I had first started, someone trying to explain it to me, and they said that they were telling me a story about another relatively new agent who was ready. They told him, come Saturday morning, be ready to go to Roundup. So he came ready for Roundup in his boots and his jeans and his rope, and he was going to round up some, I guess, cattle. I don't know. He's totally misunderstood what Roundup is. So it is a roundup, what we call 4-H Roundup is a roundup of contests. So there's several contests that happen. We do a cool thing in District 9, I think, where we do big time in D9. We do most all of our contests all in one weekend. But 4-H Roundup, is that your favorite thing ever, Michelle? No, it's record books. That's your favorite. Is it your favorite thing, Justin?
It's a close one.
Because Michelle's trying to collect herself.
Yeah. Roundup's lots of fun. It's a lot more fun when it's somewhere else.
And you say somewhere else, because we usually host it here in Montgomery County, the District 9 contest, which is cool. And then if they do, there's county roundup, right? So they do, and usually that's sort of more like a practice, right?
A review.
Not so much of a contest where it's a make it or don't. And then we go to district roundup, and then kids can go to state roundup.
Seniors can qualify to advance to state roundup, and then intermediates, there are a few contests that are invitational at state roundup.
Okay, and then just to be clarify, what is a senior 4-H member?
So in 4-H, we have three categories, 3 age divisions. Our first age division is going to be our juniors. It's going to be our 3rd through 5th graders. From there, we have intermediate 4-Hers, which is going to be 6th through 8th grade, and then what we call senior 4-H members, 9th through 12th grade.
Because that can get confusing to people that are not really extremely familiar with 4-H, because we talk about the seniors, and you start thinking a senior in high school and then juniors, but they're only 8 years old. How are they a junior? Right, so the age category. So when we refer to those, particularly when we talk about contests, that's what we're talking about. All right, so roundup, your favorite.
So county roundup, I like to, for those folks who are used to public school, I like to kind of relay roundup as far as our UIL contest. Mm-hmm. So we might have some practice held at our local school for UIL, and then we go to our district or regional UIL, and then from there we advance to state. And that's kind of the same concept with our 4-H roundup. 4-H roundup, like as you mentioned, are going to have various contests, and those are going to be our opportunities to really test the knowledge that we've worked on all year and see how well we can apply that knowledge we've gained in that project from that year. So here in Montgomery County, we'll start off with county roundup, and that's typically going to be held at the early part of the new year, depending on the schedules. Usually it's going to be in February or March. I think this year we have it set for a March date. And this is going to be a review. So we ask kids, we ask them now, to start thinking about a contest within their project. And we're going to have them sign up, and they're going to come to the extension office, and we're going to have a panel of judges for them to review their project. If it's a food and nutrition project with food show, maybe they'll bring their dish to the extension office, and they'll give their presentation, and we'll give them tips on what they can do to improve on it for when they advance to district roundup. Or if it's a photography, we'll take a look at those photos, and we'll say, okay, these are the 3 photos we think that would be best entered for the show. Here are the ones we like. Here are the ones why we didn't quite like these, because we talk about the rule of thirds, leading lines, and all those tips and tricks for photography. With robotics, we'll have a county contest to help determine which teams might go on to our major shows, because we do have a limited number of kids that we can enter and those teams we can enter. So we do have a contest for robotics. With food challenge, we'll have a mock contest. So it'll be exactly the same. We just won't give out awards, but we'll give out something more important. We'll give them constructive feedback on how they can improve. So when they do make it to that qualifying contest, they'll be as prepared as possible.
And I think one of the things that you're mentioning too, that alluding to the feedback that they get from it. So yes, they're being judged based on the amount of knowledge that they're able to communicate in whatever contest that they are in. But that's really just to help them improve and do better. So it's not just to say, oh, you're really good and you're really not so good. It's more to say, this is where I see how much you've learned, and this is where I see where you could learn some more, so that it's helping kids, again, make the best better
Right.
themselves by giving them some opportunities to improve and do something better the next time. So in some ways, the contest can be a learning experience as well as a contest where they can go home with prizes. They get ribbons. They get district roundup. We have these cool leatherette banners that they can
rosettes
keep
and
hang.
banners.
Yeah. So they have recognition certificates are another thing, which some kids love them, some parents love them, but it is just kind of a token of the participation that they've done in the contest. So the county roundup, they do well at county roundup, they get to go to district roundup, and that's what I mentioned before, big time in D9, because we're in District 9. And what we're talking about too is what we do here in Montgomery County and District 9. So if you've got friends from another part of the state, then they may go, we don't do things like that. We all have similar rules, but the way the contests are implemented may be a little different depending on what that county needs, right?
Right. So here in Texas, we have 12 districts, and we are District 9, and our district is made of 18 counties around the Houston area. So we go from Fort Bend County all the way to Orange, all the way up into, I think, Madisonville, and then all the way to Lee County, which is
That little tail there.
Yeah. So that's kind of the little cluster of 18 counties that make up our district, and those are where the kids will be competing.
And you had something, do you want to add? Oh, okay.
That was it.
All right. So Justin, District Roundup, big time in D9. Tell us about that.
Well, you are very lucky because you have the co-chairs of the District 9 Roundup, which is the big time in D9. So in the past, it has moved around our district a couple of times, but for the last 3-4 years, 5 years. Wow, it doesn't seem that long.
This will be 5.
This will be 5 years. That's been held here in Montgomery County in I wouldn't call it our backyard. It's more of our front yard because it's held.
Well, I guess you could say 4 because we didn't get
4.
to have 2020.
Yeah, technically.
Yeah. It's held here in Montgomery County at the Lone Star Community College campus. I believe it's the Montgomery.
It's called Montgomery. It's kind of in the Woodlands, but they do call it the Montgomery campus. Yeah.
So we'll have kids from all 18 counties, and it'll span a course of 2.5 days. Day 1 will be a few contests that are going to be a little bit larger, like a robotics and
Quiz bowls.
quiz bowls. We had quiz bowls that day, and then on a Thursday, and then Friday and Saturday, we run about 16 other contests throughout the day.
And one of the reasons why it's in Montgomery County too, besides the awesomeness that we are, is it's kind of central to that southeast region that you just talked about with the 18 counties.
We're pretty close to the center of the district. And in 2019, at the last contest we held, we had over 600 entries. 600 members come and participate in a variety of contests over that weekend, which is it feels like a huge number to me. It's a lot of people to.
That is a lot of people. County. Yep, and all in one weekend, kids can participate at this point in as many contests as they want. So if they just want to dip their toe in the water and just do one contest to get a feel for how it works, they can do that. We have some superstar overachievers, particularly here in Montgomery County, who have participated in 5, 6.
I think
did Kayla set the record?
Maybe 7 contests was the most, and then Galveston County had one that did 6 or 7.
And then, like we said, our older 4-H members can go on to State Roundup, which is held on the campus of Texas A&M University. So that's pretty cool. They get kind of that college experience being on a college campus. I mean, for some kids, that's one of the things that really inspires them to go to college. A&M, it's good recruitment for A&M. They get lots of recruits out of that. But and then there's also additional learning opportunities that they've added with Roundup as well. So you can go do a contest. You can also do, like, they have the 4-H Lead Academy, teaching kids leadership skills, lots of other also supplemental things that they can do.
Right. And just to give a little bit of timeline of our contest. So the 4-H year will start September 1. And so typically the fall is when we're going to have a couple of workshops and we're going to do some of the learning that goes on with that project. And then, as I mentioned, we're going to have our county roundup, kind of our county practice in March. And then we'll have district roundup in May. The first weekend in May typically is when we have district roundup. And then for our seniors and those intermediates who do have invitational contest, that'll be held in June. So we kind of run almost the full 4-H year, getting ready, all leading up to state roundup.
Yeah. And you mentioned there's 20 different contests that we have. And I'm probably not counting right, but there's food show, fashion show, food challenge, Duds to Dazzle, all the quiz bowls. So there's 3 different quiz bowls that happen. The robotics contest happens. The Share the Fun, which is kind of like a talent show.
Talent show with 7 categories. So if they're doing, band or cheerleading or dance at school, then it falls right into that. We've got photography judging contest, a livestock skillathon. That's another one where you can learn about livestock and not have to own a livestock project. Agriculture ID, which is kind of like going to the grocery store and learning about the fruits and vegetables and meat and all of those kinds of products that you might buy in a grocery store. Being able to identify them and where they come from and what the growing season is and that sort of thing. Vet science, skillathon, or another round of them.
And then we also have consumer decision making, which is 4-H shopping. It's just a different way of saying 4-H shopping. You'll have 4 products. They'll give you a scenario, and you test your ability and how to get the best bang for your buck based on a scenario they give you. We'll have public speaking, where you give a speech, and we have educational presentation, where you prepare a demonstration on a given topic. And so the difference between educational presentation and public speaking is, with educational presentations, you get to use props and PowerPoints.
And so we mentioned earlier, too, in the first show about, when you're selecting a project or whatever, pretty much anything you're interested in, you could make a 4-H project out of it. And educational presentations is one of those ones that I think that is that contest where you can really highlight what you've learned, because there are incredibly interesting topics that often come up in those educational presentations. So there's several categories that they can enter, and then there's an open category. So pretty much something that doesn't fit anywhere else can go into the open category, and you can show off what you've learned.
So if your project was underwater basket weaving, you can do a educational presentation on how to do underwater basket weaving.
Yeah. Okay, so this is just like one kind of contest category, and we've got more that we want to talk about because one of the things that people think about often is livestock shows. We're going to talk a little bit more about those, how you get into those in the next segments, but we're going to take a break, and we'll be back in just a little bit as we talk more about 4-H and our people, our programs, and our partnerships here on Lone Star Radio. See you soon.
What can the Better Living for Texans program do for you? You can learn how to increase your consumption of fruits and vegetables, choose foods that are relatively inexpensive and good to eat, make your food dollars last longer, prepare quick, nutritious meals, help your children learn how to eat healthier snacks, and much more. Our program is committed to helping people like you improve your health through providing research-based nutrition education in a friendly, cost-free, and relaxed environment. We are Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, helping Texans make their lives better.
Lone Star Community Radio is looking for those who are interested in hosting their own talk show, with monthly and weekly slots available in Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1, and on irlonestar.com. Start your own podcast, create your first YouTube channel, and be on TV. Contact Lone Star Community Radio online at irlonestar.com or call the station message line at 936-647-3776 to take your first step into the radio world.
Hey, y'all. It's DJ Mike from Dance Time in Texas. Join me Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. as I count down the top 10 Texas Red Dirt songs that are packing the dance floors. I'll be featuring local artists and the story behind the hits, shows in the area, as well as new songs that make you want to dance. It's Dance Time in Texas with DJ Mike on Lone Star Community Radio, 104.5 KCZW and 106.1 KZCC, Conroe, Texas, or online, irlonestar.com.
Welcome back. We're talking about 4-H basics. We're focusing more on projects and contests in this segment or this show today, because in our first show, in our series of 3 that we've put together for you today, we talked about just kind of the basics, how to join 4-H, and why you should be in 4-H and that kind of thing. And so now we're focusing more on projects and sort of contest, basically. So, and as we mentioned in the last segment, the contests are really a great learning experience too. You kind of you put yourself out there, and you really get a chance to evaluate the skills and how much you have learned. And I think one of the cool things is just seeing like how much you've grown. So it's hard. Sometimes kids can be really shy and maybe lack some of the confidence that they need. Of course, there's some kids that have plenty of confidence. Obviously, we've got all kinds in 4-H, but I'm just always impressed both when I see kids that already have the confidence, but any of those ones that kind of develop it and learn it along the way. And contests are kind of like a really cool marker for
benchmark.
Those. Yeah, to see the difference from, the kid that wouldn't hardly say a word the first time they got in front of a judge to the ones that you can't get to stop talking.
Sitting in the hall crying because they were going to have to do their presentation in front of the judge. And we finally convinced her she could do her presentation to the county judges facing away from them. She had to talk loud enough they could hear her, but she didn't have to look at them. We finally got her through that, and 2 years later, she's standing in front of a 4-H club of 100 members giving her treasurer's speech. Yeah. Or treasurer's report.
So another thing that happens, some of the things that people are most familiar with is the livestock show, right? Or they think about 4-H, and that means showing animals. And for many families, that is the main thing that they do. And so we want to talk a little bit now about the fair and also major livestock shows, because that's a whole world by itself, pretty much, right?
It is. It is. It's an expanding world now. But there's lots of opportunities out there. Of course, Montgomery County Fair is where the bulk of our 4-H members focus their attention on participation. That's kind of the biggest thing going on in any county, is the county fair is a really big deal. Montgomery County Fair is not unusual in the fact that their requirements to participate in Montgomery County Fair are that you are a 4-H or FFA member, and that you live in and or go to school in Montgomery County. So we do have some homeschool families that may live on the borders of the county and not go to school in Montgomery County, and so those are the requirements for Montgomery County Fair. You have to live in and or go to school in Montgomery County, and there's a whole lot of details to that. They also, 4-H does not have an attendance requirement. So Texas 4-H does not require that you have to attend or participate in X number of meetings to be a member in good standing. However, Montgomery County Fair has a requirement that a 4-H member or an FFA member has to have attended 50% of the meetings between September and February. Now, I know the fair's not until April, and that's 6 months if you're counting. So you have to attend at least 3 of the meetings within that 6 months. I encourage people to get those 3 out of the way in a hurry because things happen. Like we discovered this year, things happen.
It's been a year of happenings.
But our entries are due in February. So then that's the reason that the deadline to make those attendance requirements is in February. So you've got those two things under your belt. If you are doing a livestock project, there's a few more deadlines that we have to be aware of. And there's lots of details to that. So to be able to show a livestock project, for the most part, you have to tag that animal in. What the heck is tag in? So in our junior livestock program statewide, there is a process of verifying that you own that animal by the ownership deadline. Every show that's out there, every county fair, every state major show that's out there has an ownership deadline. You have to own the animal by X date. So for Montgomery County Fair, that date coincides with a tag-in where you bring the animal, the 4-H member, and the child to the fairgrounds, and you tag the animal in. We record all your information, what club you're with, and then that animal is available to show at Montgomery County Fair. So there's a series of those. It all depends on what animal you're showing. There's a different tag-in date for all of those. So those are the 3 requirements so far. Now, there is a whole other process to Montgomery County Fair. They have a non-livestock show. And for us, non-livestock show is they've got homemaking, desserts, cakes, candies, pies, breads from scratch, quick breads, yeast breads, canned foods. They have handicraft, they have needlecraft, fine arts, photography, and horticulture show. So all of those, the deadline for those is the entry deadline in February. They are having on November 6th, they're having an information meeting about all the non-livestock things, if you have questions about those things. In the non-livestock show in Montgomery County, you submit your entry on Saturday morning, and that goes through an evaluation process. Judges go in and they pick the top 10. Those top 10 come back for an interview that afternoon. So in the interview process, those 10 are interviewed. They have to be able to tell the judge everything they can tell them about the project that they turned in. And then from that step, they place the top 4, and the top 4 go into the auction.
And just to mention one of the ways that, so we're talking a lot of details, right? Because there's a lot
of details, yes.
So there is a fair catalog that's available.
There is a fair catalog, mcfa.org, and you can find the rules, a full book of the rules, and I would encourage anyone that's considering Montgomery County Fair to go in, read the general rules, and read the rules for the species or category that you're going to be or interested in entering. And that will give you all of the information that you need to be ready for that. So that's county participation, Montgomery County Fair. We have a large number of 4-H members that choose to try new things and stretch their comfort zone, and they go and show at a major livestock show. So our major livestock shows in Texas are, do I start in the fall? I guess we'll start in the fall.
Yeah.
So for the fall shows are State Fair of Texas and Heart of Texas. You've seen some information about those two being able to be accomplished this year with a limited number of people coming and only focusing on the junior market projects. And then when we move into January, we start with Fort Worth, the Southwestern Livestock Show in Fort Worth, San Antonio, San Angelo, Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, and then Rodeo Austin. So we have, Texas is extremely unique in the number of shows that we have and the variety of things that we have going on. For the livestock projects, it's the same concept. There is an ownership deadline. There's one extra step. We have validation for that. So you have to order the tags and tell us that you're planning on validating something. Then you have to come to the validation night. Same thing, child, parent, animal come. We use the tag that you ordered. We get you validated. And then there's an entry night. So you'll come to my office as a 4-H member. You'll come to the office and we'll get your entries done and get you entered into that livestock show. The really neat thing that I think is going on with the major shows, and Justin mentioned a while ago that there are some UIL contests that are similar to what our 4-H Roundup contests are. And the same thing has happened with the major shows. Our major livestock shows have begun to try to recruit non-livestock members and add more contests that are not related to livestock, because there's several of us that are in the situation that Montgomery County's in, and we're becoming more subdivided. We're becoming more suburban or urban, and there's fewer places to be able to keep livestock projects. So the major shows have seen that happening, and they're doing what they can to try to get that done, to add that to it.
And with that, every county show and major show, they have a mission of agriculture education. And I think they've realized they're understanding that agriculture education is not just showing livestock, but also in some of the contests and getting prepared for those contests, as we've mentioned, that growth in those projects that they get. Some of the projects that they have in those that are non-livestock, the major shows, and even Montgomery County Fair, one of the most popular one that's growing quickly is the robotics, agrobotics as we call it. Montgomery County Fair had their first agrobot contest in 2019. And we had 50 teams, over 400 kids come to that. And the theme was Texas timber. So there'll be a theme with that contest that relates to some type of agricultural product or agricultural industry. This past year at the major shows, the theme for agrobot contest were bees, native bees. And this coming year, we're going to be looking at water conservation. So there's always some tie to agriculture. Along with robotics, we have food challenge. And as we know, food, it's kind of path to the plate how food gets, our farmers and our agriculturalists are the ones who produce our food. We also have a vet science skill-a-thon, as Michelle had mentioned. Vet science is one of those, is a very popular program. But we need our veterinarians, for our livestock producers, and so getting them trained and hopefully getting them some exposure for their state certified assistant test is also going to be beneficial to that. And then we do a few other things as we talked about with public speaking, and so that we'll have speeches will be geared towards agricultural industries, learning about talking about vaccinations, talking about food and fiber, and then we have science affairs, agri-science fairs, and those are all going to be related to ag products, power systems, food systems, animal systems, and even people systems.
So I think one of the takeaways when we're talking about fairs and major shows is it takes a lot of planning in advance, right? So a lot of folks start planning like as soon as this fair's over, we're planning for the next fair or the next livestock show. So it's not necessarily something that you can just say, oh, fair's coming up next week, I think I'll enter, or I want to go to the livestock show and show something. Definitely there's lots of other things that where you can go just be a spectator and that kind of thing, but if you really wanted to participate, it takes a lot of planning in advance. So contacting your local county extension office is definitely one of your first steps. Find out where you're at on that so that you've got everything that you need to make sure that you have successful participation in those shows.
And the big advantage that I can see with the major shows coming on board with some of these things is they fall in line with some of the FFA contests that are happening. They're similar to some of the UIL contests that are going on. And so you have, if you plan well, you have the opportunity to work really hard on a project and be able to utilize it in multiple contests, or a version of it in multiple contests. So to me, that's a real neat opportunity to get to be able to play with the same thing in different courts.
And as I mentioned before, just participating in the contest is a learning experience by itself. So it's not required to participate in contests as a part of 4-H, but it definitely is a fun part of 4-H. So we are going to take a break. We're going to come back with some last thoughts from Michelle and Justin about contest and why you should participate in contest or 4-H contest. We'll do another top 5. So we're going to take a break, give them a chance to come up with their 5, and then we'll be right back after this.
The Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service has been dedicated to educating Texans for over a century. In 1915, the Extension Program was established under the federal Smith-Lever Act to deliver university knowledge and agricultural research findings directly to the people. Ever since, AgriLife Extension programs have addressed the emerging issues of the day, serving diverse populations across the state. Texans turn to Extension for solutions in horticulture, agriculture, 4-H and youth, and family and consumer sciences. Extension agents respond not only with answers, but also with resources and services that result in significant returns on investment to boost the economy. Join us Fridays at 1 o'clock for the AgriLife Extension Hour.
From the beginning, the main purpose of the Cooperative Extension Service has been to change human behavior by teaching people how to apply the results of scientific research. By utilizing a holistic, multi-level approach, Extension family and community health programs encourage health and well-being for everyone. Addressing values, concerns, and needs with reliable science-based information, Extension programs help people lead healthier lives. We are Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, helping Texans make their lives better.
Remember to download the Lone Star Community Radio app from your Google Play Apple Store. Bring Montgomery County's community radio with you anywhere with your smartphone or tablet. If you are in the Conroe area, tune in on FM 104.5, 106.1. If you are on your computer, bookmark irlonestar.com as your internet radio station. Lone Star Community Radio, broadcasting 24/7 from the heart of downtown Conroe, Texas.
Welcome back. We're to part of our 3-part series on 4-H basics. We've been talking in this show about contest and livestock shows and those kinds of things that you can do. In our first show, we talked about really basics of just signing up for 4-H. So if you need to rewind, you can go back and listen to one of those. They are available on YouTube and here on the station's webpage. So you can find more information there. But we've been talking about contests, right? So I'm going to put Michelle and Justin on the spot, and I want to know what your top 5 are about contests, what they do, why are they good, why do we even do them in 4-H?
It's a way to see where you stand. You've been working really hard learning this information. In a contest, you're able to exhibit what you've learned, demonstrate what you've learned, and from one year to the next, you can see your improvement. As a grown-up, I get compared to my coworkers on a performance basis, so it's an opportunity to practice that sort of opportunity as well. Being able to see where you stand with your peers and how you can compete with your peers, because as a grown-up, lots of our jobs are competitive also, and so this is a safe way to get that experience and some practice at that.
Yeah.
So talking about practice, another thing we kind of alluded to was the interview. We had mentioned the story about the growth that we saw in the young lady with her first interview to speaking in front of a large 4-H group. But a lot of these contests have an interview component to them. And so, as we know, to make the best better, the more practice that we can getting in front of those judges, the better we are going to get, the better we will be at interviewing. And so the goal with that is when these kids go to interview for their first job, they'll have the skills to give a good interview. If it's going to be for vet school, as Michelle had talked about, I think in the last show, maybe talking about her vet school experience was having that interview skills, and then when we get into the real world, being able to interview for these jobs. So I think it's a very important skill that these kids will get lots of practice with.
Okay.
Confidence building, being able to, stand up in front of a group and successfully get through that interview process or that contest. The horse judging we always were terrified of having to give reasons. And I tell kids today, you have to give reasons every day. So it's just practice, and you're giving it to somebody beside your parents. But building that confidence and learning that skill.
And all these amount to is the learning experience these kids are going to get that they can kind of grow from. Because in 4-H, we're going to grow true leaders. And through that, we're going to see them kind of blossom over the years. But it's going to be learning experiences, how to do that interview process, how do we compare against our peers, and how can we improve, along with having that confidence. So with that is we can put these learning experiences also on our resumes for when we go for those jobs. And then also we think about our seniors when we're applying for scholarships. I think it's great when we have 4.0 GPAs, but we also want to see well-rounded kids and who are going to have different activities such as a food challenge. They're going to do robotics. They do a beef cattle project. And most of those are going to have that contest aspect and that interview aspect. But those are going to be great learning experiences that they can put down on resumes and even the 4-H record book.
All right, number 5.
Actually, number 1. We're counting down.
Yeah,
okay.
Counting down.
We're counting down.
The number 1 reason
Top
why
5.
you should do it is
It's
fun.
Definitely having fun.
Yeah.
Fun with your teammates. Fun, fun in the getting to the event, the traveling. I never realized what a big deal it was that we traveled to major shows, traveled to state roundup. When I got to college and nobody could believe I would jump in the truck and drive 3 or 4 hours by myself to those big cities. So little things like that we don't ever even think about.
It's also fun to see the growth, and so when we have a little bit of hard luck, and 1 year we might not do as well as we had hoped, but it's fun to see when you come back the next year, or the next day, and you do well, and you've had that ability to grow as a young member. That's also the fun part too.
Yeah.
And meeting new people and seeing those people again and again from across the state and learning those ideas and sharing experiences statewide.
Oftentimes those
is
are
a
going to be
part of
some of the friends you're going to make throughout your 4-H career, and after 4-H you'll see those same kids probably in your college career and post-college.
And still be friends this many years later.
Even when they were competitors when you were younger.
Yes.
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 Yeah, so many good reasons why to join 4-H and to do contests, and but you know what? There's even more. And so our next show is going to be, but wait, there's more, because there really is more that you can do in 4-H. So we will be back next week with more about 4-H opportunities. We'll talk a little bit about record books. We'll talk about scholarships. We'll talk about leadership opportunities and community service, and probably a few other things that we come up with along the way in this 3-part series about our 4-H basics here in Montgomery County. And of course, as we mentioned before, it's very similar in every county in Texas. So some of the things we've talked about have been really specific to Montgomery County, but pretty much anybody in 4-H is going to have these similar types of opportunities. So just to reiterate, to find out more information, where do we go?
Call 936-539-7823, extension 3, between 8 and noon, 1 and 5, Monday through Friday.
Or
You can visit agrilife.org/Montgomery County 4-H, no dash.
sometimes you dash, sometimes you don't dash. But, Google can be your friend too,
Montgomery
right?
County
Montgomery,
4-H.
Texas. Montgomery County, Texas, yep. Or Texas 4-H. thank you so much for being here, sharing more information. There's a lot to 4-H, and one time we had kind of a tagline, more than you ever imagined, and that was actually one of my favorites. And National 4-H Week, that's another thing. Well, we'll talk about that in the next show. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Justin, for being here. And thank you all for listening. And we will be back next time with more 4-H information. Thanks for being with us on the Extension Hour, where we highlight our people, our programs, and our partnerships, and helping Texans make their lives better.
Today's show was recorded and broadcasted live on irlonestar.com, Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1, and all rights and ownership are reserved to Lone Star Community Radio. For more information regarding this program and Lone Star Community Radio, visit us online at irlonestar.com. Lone Star Community Radio is Montgomery County's community radio station, serving the community with local programming on TV, radio, and online. If you enjoyed today's program, please support us by sponsorship or starting your own show. Contact us today by phone or text at 936-666-1084 or email the station at lscrstudios@gmail.com.